"Dad, please don't come today." Those were the words Jada whispered last night, words her father didn't understand, not yet. But when Mr. Washington stepped into the school cafeteria the next afternoon, everything froze. He watched his daughter, his bright, gentle 12-year-old, being shoved toward a dim corner like she didn't belong. Her lunch scattered on the floor, white students laughing, a staff member glaring down at her with cold authority. One question hit him harder than anything. How long had his daughter been surviving this nightmare alone, and why did no one stop it? Comment and tell us where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories. Before that moment in the cafeteria, nothing about Mr. Washington's life suggested the storm waiting for him. He had built his world around responsibility. Long workdays, community meetings, late nights spent trying to create a better future for the families he served. He wasn't wealthy, but he worked tirelessly to provide stability for his daughter, Jada. And to him, nothing mattered more than making sure she had opportunities he never did. Every morning he dropped her at the gates of Brookdale Academy, a school he believed would protect her, challenge her, and elevate her. It was expensive, far beyond what most single parents could afford. But he saw it as investment, sacrifice, love. The school brochure showed smiling children of every color, promising inclusion, excellence, and opportunity. He bought into the dream wholeheartedly, and Jada always reassured him. "School's fine, Dad, everything's good." She'd say it softly with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. But he missed the signs, the tiredness, the hesitation, the way she avoided conversations about lunchtime or certain teachers. He assumed she was adjusting, growing, learning how to fit in. The night before everything unfolded, she had approached him quietly, almost afraid to speak. "Dad, please don't come tomorrow." I'll be okay." He didn't understand the tremble in her voice, the way her hands tightened around her backpack. He thought she was just stressed about classes. He promised they would celebrate the weekend together before sending her off to bed. But something about her tone stayed with him long after she walked away. A heaviness, a warning he didn't recognize. The next day his schedule was packed, meetings, calls, endless responsibilities, but that lingering worry pushed through the noise. He decided to surprise her with lunch. Just a simple gesture, he thought, a small reminder that she was never alone. He had no idea that stepping into that cafeteria would shatter everything he believed about her school and reveal the truth she'd been hiding for far too long. When Mr. Washington stepped into Brookdale Academy that afternoon, he expected nothing more than a warm smile from his daughter and a quiet lunch together. Instead, the first sound that greeted him was the crash of a lunch tray hitting the floor. His eyes shot toward the noise, and in that split second the world around him slowed. There was Jada, standing rigid, her hands trembling, her food scattered across the polished tiles. A cluster of students stared, some snickering, others recording. And towering over her was a cafeteria supervisor whose expression carried something far colder than simple irritation. It was authority weaponized, superiority wrapped in a polite uniform. Mr. Washington stopped completely. Something inside him tightened, a feeling he hadn't known since his own childhood, one he thought he had buried long ago. He watched as Jada was pointed toward a dimly lit corner of the room, a section far from the bright windows where the premium tables sat. The divide was invisible to the eye, yet impossible to miss. White students laughing and talking in the spacious center area, while students of color sat clustered near the back, quiet, hunched, trying to avoid being noticed. He scanned the cafeteria, taking in every detail. The polished main tables, cushioned chairs, bright decor, all carefully curated for the families who funded the school. Then the back section, hard wooden benches, flickering fluorescent lights, trash bins only a few steps away. It looked less like a lunch area and more like a boundary line no one dared cross. His heart sank. His daughter had been eating here. He watched as Jada reached for the fallen pieces of her lunch, only for a passing student to nudge them farther away with her shoe. Another laughed and whispered into a friend's ear. The supervisor didn't correct them. She didn't help. She didn't even look at Jada with the softness adults are supposed to have when children struggle. Instead, she just gestured sharply, an unspoken command that said, "Know your place." A sudden wave of guilt hit him. How many days had she eaten here? How many times had she cried silently, choosing to protect him instead of telling the truth? He wanted to rush forward, but something held him back. He stepped behind a support column, pulled out his phone almost instinctively. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was anger. Maybe it was the realization that if he confronted anyone now, without proof, they would twist the story, dismiss him, or worse, blame Jada. So he recorded every movement, every sound. every cruel detail unfolding in front of him. Moments later, he noticed a group of white students blocking Jada's path as she carried what was left of her meal toward the corner. Their posture radiated entitlement, the kind that grows unchecked when adults reinforce it. One girl stepped forward, tilting her head as if evaluating someone beneath her. The others giggled. Jada didn't push back. She didn't speak. She simply lowered her gaze and tried to move past them. And that was the moment Mr. Washington felt something inside him fracture. The strong, confident daughter he had raised now looked small, smaller than he had ever seen her. Then came the part that made his chest burn. A teacher walked by, saw everything, and kept going. No intervention, no concern, just silence, a silence that screamed complicity. Another teacher watched from a distance, arms crossed, saying nothing. The injustice wasn't isolated. It was organized, routine, normalized. And as the minutes passed, the truth became undeniable. This was not an accident, it was a system. A system designed to humiliate, a system designed to exclude, a system designed to break children slowly, quietly, daily. His recording captured 12 minutes of this reality, 12 minutes that felt like a lifetime. What he didn't know, what he couldn't possibly prepare for, was that the worst moment was still ahead. Because the supervisor was now walking back toward Jada, expression hardened, steps purposeful, and Mr. Washington understood. This wasn't just discrimination. It was about to become something far more dangerous, something that would force him out of hiding and into the heart of a fight he never asked for. The cafeteria supervisor reached Jada with a coldness that made every muscle in Mr. Washington's body tighten. Her shadow fell across the child like a warning. She didn't bend down. She didn't soften her tone. Instead, she lifted Jada's chin with 2 fingers, an adult asserting dominance over a child who had already been humiliated enough. Jada froze. Her eyes glistened, her shoulders trembling under the weight of silent suffering. And then, right there in front of dozens of watching students, the supervisor struck her cheek, not hard enough to leave a bruise, but sharp enough to silence the room. A slap that wasn't about pain, but power. Laughter stopped. Cameras rose. But not a single adult stepped in. Mr. Washington's breath caught. It felt like every moment of her hidden suffering had condensed into that one blow. He stepped out from behind the column, slow, steady, controlled, but inside, everything burned. He walked to Jada, placing a hand on her shoulder so gently it nearly broke him. She looked up, her face collapsing between fear and relief, as if she couldn't believe he was actually there. The supervisor turned, irritation shifting into annoyance. "And who are you?" she snapped, as if he were the one causing disruption. He stared at her, memorizing the face of the woman who had just harmed his child. "I'm her father," he said quietly. But before he could say anything more, before he could demand answers, the principal marched over with the confidence of someone who had never been questioned in his life. He didn't look at Jada. He didn't ask what happened. He simply gestured at Mr. Washington like an inconvenience. "Sir, you need to leave immediately." "Leave?" Mr. Washington echoed, struggling to keep his voice steady. "My daughter is being segregated, humiliated, and now assaulted." "That's a serious accusation," the principal interrupted, "and completely unfounded. You're disrupting school operations." 2 security guards moved in, big men, stiff posture, trained to remove problems. They didn't ask what happened. They didn't look at Jada. They didn't check his ID. They just grabbed his arms, not politely, not gently, but with the force reserved for someone dangerous. Jada panicked. "Dad, stop. Please don't say anything," she whispered, tears spilling as she clutched his sleeve. She wasn't afraid for herself. She was terrified for him. The guards began dragging him backward through the cafeteria. Students watched, some whispering, some recording, thrilled by the spectacle of a black father being removed like a threat. And the supervisor, smirking, leaned back beside the principal as if justice had been served. Then came the line that sliced the room in half. "You people never know how to behave," she muttered under her breath, but Mr. Washington heard it, and so did his phone, still recording every second. He stopped resisting, stopped speaking, stopped arguing, because now he had everything he needed. As the guards pushed him out the cafeteria doors and the latch clicked behind him, a single thought formed in his mind, clear, sharp, and unstoppable. This school has no idea who they just humiliated, and within the next hour, the entire building would find out. When the cafeteria doors slammed behind Mr. Washington, the school believed the problem had been removed. They didn't realize the truth was already in motion. Within the hour, federal authorities arrived, agents, investigators, officials, each one carrying the weight of the law that the school had violated so casually. The same cafeteria that once silenced children was now flooded with questions, cameras, and accountability. Inside, the truth spilled out quickly. Students who had stayed silent for months found their voices. Teachers who once looked away could no longer hide from what was recorded. Every cruel rule, every whispered insult, every segregated table was laid bare under the bright light of the investigation. And through it all, Jada watched the world shift around her. For the first time in months, adults were finally looking at her, not with annoyance or disdain, but with realization, with guilt, with the shame of what they allowed. And standing beside her was the father she thought she had to protect from her pain. In the weeks that followed, the school faced consequences it never imagined. Policies were rewritten, staff were removed, funding was frozen, and a new administration stepped in, one committed to rebuilding trust and restoring dignity. Jada and the other students who had suffered were given the support, care, and recognition they had always deserved. But the impact stretched far beyond one building. Communities began asking harder questions. Parents showed up unannounced. Students spoke up about what they had endured in silence. And the video of Jada's humiliation and her father's forced removal sparked a national conversation about the subtle ways racism hides in places meant to protect children. For Mr. Washington, the moment was more than a fight for justice. It was a reminder. A reminder that even the strongest parents can miss the quiet suffering of their children. A reminder that injustice thrives in silence. And a reminder that one courageous step, one moment of refusing to look away, can dismantle years of cruelty. Because this wasn't just a story about a child pushed into a corner. It was about every child who has ever been told they don't belong. So the final question becomes yours. How many more children must suffer in silence before we decide to see and to act? If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And make sure you subscribe to Black Community Struggles for more powerful stories about justice, truth, and our community's fight to be seen.